Hi everyone, welcome to the Jansen Art Studio. I'm David Jansen. I'm going to take a few moments for you to educate you a little bit on global colors in the Heritage Artist Acrylic. Now, I highly suggest if you're considering buying Heritage Artist Acrylics, or you want to know more about the manipulation process or how you can use Heritage in more multimedia type paintings, please watch this video all the way to the end. Don't stop it. Watch this video all the way to the end and watch it several times because there's going to be a lot of information in it, okay? So I want to take a few minutes and I want to explain to you a little bit about the Heritage Acrylics, how to make global colors, and how to take care of your colors. It will save you time, it will save you frustration, and most of all, it's going to save you money if you just listen very carefully, okay? Let's do this. So Heritage Acrylics come a couple of different ways. This is one way here, which is right in the tube, and this is the way we usually normally sell our paints, is in these types of tubes. And if you have the types of tubes that have the clear top on them, they're going to have a pop open top like this that you can squirt out. As soon as you remove, that's the first frustrating part about it, you have to remove that little foil seal that's on the top of it. If you're going to get that. Some of our older tubes, not really older, we're just switching over and trying some different things. This one is just a regular tube here, and you can just take that off and squirt the paint right up. But these are the acrylic, and it comes in here. Now, what is it? There's no real extended drying time to it when you buy the acrylic, the Heritage Art acrylic. They're an artist grade acrylic that's going to dry in about 10 to 20 minutes, depending upon the painting conditions you have in your room or whether you're painting outside. It depends on air temperature, it depends on humidity, most of all humidity. Okay, so these will dry 10 to 20 minutes, something like that. We also sell the Heritage in what we call the global color, okay, and you'll see it onto the label. We have the global color here. Okay, we sell it also as in different sizes. This is not a global color, so you won't see the global color here. This is in a regular acrylic color here. And it's just a larger jar of it, okay? And then we also sell it in the global here as the global here. Now what the global is they have a slower drying time. They have our extender medium already mixed up into it. So this is the yellow oxide color, and it has a slower drying time to it. Here is the yellow oxide as acrylic, here's the yellow oxide as a global, okay? And so now I want to show you just what is some of the difference and what is some of the problems. To make a color global, we have to increase what we call extender medium into it. This is the one I use here on my paint table. This is extender medium. This is a chemical that is added to the Heritage Acrylics. Now, I will not work with all acrylic paints. Let's get that right out of the way right now. If you're an acrylic artist and you're looking at switching over or using multiple products, or if you are ever mixing different brands of acrylics together, you are playing with fire, and you should not be doing that, because acrylic companies do not test their products with other acrylic products. They make sure that their paint system works. This is a product that works with the Heritage. It's a specially designed product that works with the Heritage Multimedia. I don't know if it's going to work with all other products because I don't know their formulas. So we do not recommend that you add it to any other type of acrylic. You may even get it to work for, 2 or 3 years, but then it may crack and come off. We don't know because we don't share each other's formulas. So not all acrylics are the same. So be very careful about ever mixing acrylics together, okay? So if you're going to make a global color, you take an acrylic color like this and you add this, and it is usually 10 to 30%. I like to add about 20%, 10 to 30%, depending upon how long a drying time you want to have. So let's make one here real quick. I usually take a little container, or I use a little palette, or I use the global palette, which you'll see that we sell a lot of. And this is the brown matter. I'm going to use it today in some paintings for a YouTube video, and I'm going to make it up to it's a little bit global here. So I go out and I put this color in. Now I want to put out quite a bit of the color into a container like this if you're going to save it. If you put in just a little drop of paint and into a container like this, the smaller the drop of paint that you put in there, the faster it's going to dry, because it's going to evaporate out depending on the humidity that you have in your area. So if you can fill up at least half the well, that's a pretty good start right there. And then what I'll do is I'll take and I will add some extender medium to it, usually about 10 or 20%. If I put it in here, I make sure I cover it up there completely. And then you mix it up. And I just use the end of my brush here like this, and I start to just very carefully mix it up because I'm mixing up a small amount. If you're putting it inside of another container or something like that, you can, sometimes put it in a sealed lid and shake it up. There's all kinds of different ways. But it'll take just a few minutes here of mixing it up here. And you notice it's all starting to come together here and mixing up. And just take your care that you don't spill it out too much. It's going to make the paint a little bit more loose, okay? And that's how we judge it. So here you see it's all coming together now, and it's all creamy and stuff again. But the paint is just a little bit thinner. Now, what it is because the extender medium that we have is thinner, and it's making the paint thinner. Now comes what we call the global process. Inside this paint is also water, because that's an acrylic. And the acrylic has a high degree of water in it, okay? And a little bit different amounts of water depending on the different pigments, because all pigments are different. So we have a little bit different amount of water in each one of these. Now what I do is I let this stay open like this into the air of the room, and about every 6 or 8 hours I like to just stir it up a little bit, and I'll do that for at least 24 hours or 48 hours. And what's going to happen is as the water comes out of that, it's going to start to harden up, or not harden up, but thicken up. And it will slowly get really thick on you. And you can stop it at any time by putting the little lid on top of it. Each of the little containers, like a little lid, comes on there, and that'll stop it and preserve it at that consistency that you want. So you control the consistency by either adding extender to it if the paint is really thick, or removing it, letting the water evaporate out of the paint. Okay, so this one's all ready to go. I would leave this open now for a couple days on my paint table, and I'll stir it. But I can go ahead and use it right today, which I'm going to. I'll just put it out on my palette, and I will let it harden up, not harden up, I keep saying it, thicken up. It will thicken up on my palette a lot faster than it does inside of here. So I'll put it out on this palette here, and it'll start to thicken up. So I'll leave that out for today. Now, this is a palette here that I normally paint with in my videos, and we'll step back. I've been using this palette in my videos. You've seen it in all the YouTube videos and a lot of my DVDs that I make. I use this palette here. This palette is over a year old. And I constantly go through and refill it and stuff like that. There is a color here that I made, a global here, the pine green, which is all ready to go here to add to it because I made a mistake with one of my pine greens, and I'm going to show you that in just a minute. But all these colors here, they're all globalized. I like my whites a little bit thicker, so I let the whites thicken up quite a bit more than I do the other colors. So when you see me paint videos and everything, you'll see me paint with a real thick white. That's because I leave my white open longer than my other colors, so my white is very thick. The Heritage is a paint line that you control. Okay, it's a professional grade artist color, and just like when I painted with oils for years and years, I adjusted the oils to the different techniques I like to do. You adjust these acrylics to the different techniques that you like to do. Okay, so I don't need to keep this palette open all the time because all these colors are globalized. All these colors have the right amount of thickness that I like my paints to have when I'm painting. Okay, and I like these whites really thick. So you'll see that this white is very thick. It's a lot thicker than the other colors that I have here. And because it has been open for a long time, there's not as much water into it. It's very slow drying. And I like my whites that way, okay? And I talk about that in videos when you paint with me. So I have those colors out here. Now, I want to show you a mistake I made here. And we were painting here this last week into the studio, and I left my colors open. And generally, I don't have too much of a problem with it. These colors that I had here have been sitting out. I had them out here on a paper plate, and extra colors that I use. And they have not been covered or taken care of now for 4 days. So they're globalized. They were globalized colors. But after 4 days, you can see here, they are really thick here. They are really thick. Now, I can take this back to, I mean, this, I would use this in a landscape in a heartbeat. It's a beautiful color. If it has any kind of, you know, what we say, grungies or anything like that into it, grab my knife here. You can always take it down onto your palette here and press it down like this, and you can see it's still a beautiful color here. You see, it's just really, really thick. It's like an oil paint. It's not like your normal acrylics that run just a little bit thinner than oils, but it's a beautiful color here. Okay, it's just gotten thick. And now, so this has been 4 days sitting out here like this. And so, would I, you know, how would I go about doing this? If I want to make this back to a consistency that I like to do, I just add my extender back to it. Now, if I don't want it to dry super slow, because this is going to make it dry even slower, if I don't want it to dry super slow, you can add a little water back into it, okay? You control the drying time of the paint by whether you're adding extender to it or water to it. Now, this will mix up, and I will probably add just a little bit more, and you'll see that. And there'll be a few little lumpies into it and stuff like that that you might get a few little lumps in it. You might get a few little areas that dried a little bit more than the others and stuff like that. But it's still a really nice paint, and it'll be a nice creamy paint. And boy, that's a good consistency, and I'll probably leave that right there. And it might look a little bit lumpy, but if you take it down to your palette and smash it down like this, you can see there is no lumps into that paint. It's beautiful paint. And if there is, you can usually generally just kind of smash it and mix it up. Kind of like what we did with oil paints for years and years. But, you know, the nice thing about it is, yet there's no smell with it, okay? So those work, that works pretty well with that. And I would do that. I would go through and do that here. Let me set this off to the side here for a second. Another paper towel. I tend to go through a lot of paper towels. And that I would go through and do that with all my colors. So here's my Diox purple. It has thickened up quite a bit. I would go through and loosen it up with some extender. This is a quinacridone violet color that I have here. Same type of thing. You can see that that color is really, really thickened up here. I'll move a straight an area here, clean area, and it's got just a few little lumpies and stuff in it that I can just kind of smash out here and mix up and creamy up this paint a little bit more here. And generally, if you have some real hard ones, you know, areas or something like that, you can lift it out. But I can use a little bit of extender right onto the surface like this if I want to take this out, put it on my palette and whip it up, just like we used to do with oil paints and linseed oils. And, you know, after they started to tighten up, you can see it's loosening up all of this paint again, and it's starting to come back to life again. Okay, so you can do that. You can mix it up. You can mix up the colors. All colors, now this is a very important thing. All colors will dry at different rates. When we make the Heritage, we make it from a ground pigment, and each pigment and each formula is slightly different. And so all colors will dry, just like in oil paint, all colors dry at different rates. So your umbers and your whites and stuff usually dry faster than some of your others. Some of your other colors that no matter what you do always stay nice is this red violet. Its particular pigment always stays nice. It's always a beautiful color. I love to use this color, and it will stay global, and you can leave that open for a week. I can on my palette. I do several times, and there's nothing wrong with the color whatsoever. But some of the other colors, like a burnt sienna, some of your earth colors and stuff like that, might dry up a little bit or harden up a little bit faster, and might get a few little grungies in it, like this one has a little grungy in it right here like that I might have to smash out. And I can just smash that right out here. I mean, pretty hard. Work it on your palette. And I've smashed, it's doable for this one. It's doable, and it as you can see, it's just smashed right back down into a nice creamy paint again here. And this is a beautiful thick paint if you wanted to do landscapes or something like that with it. It's a beautiful color. So these are really thick, and so I forgot I didn't do anything with them. I left them in my paint room unopened for about 4 days, and they really thickened up, and you can still save it. Now, this is one that was sitting right with them at the same time, and it's hard at the top up there, okay? This is why colors dry at a different rate. This is a pine green pigment here. So it's hard up here at the top here. And this was my own fault. I didn't cover them. I didn't take care of them. I walked away that night from painting and forgot to take care of my palette. So the surface part of this paint here has dried. So matter of fact, you can just take this whole surface part right here and lift it off. That's usually what happens to it there. That's the surface part of it. And you might even get a little bit of good paint out of that, you know, there. But underneath here is going to be fine. It's just going to be a little thicker. But the air has gotten to it too much here, and it's got this rubberized little cap on the top of it. Okay, now I can mix extender right back into this one here, and you know, just like the other colors with what's left here of that little rubberized top here, I'll mix this back in, and I'll, you know, save the rest of my color. That was my fault. I left the color on, you know, unprotected there, and I can see it's mixing all up. It's got a couple of little grungies in there, but you could take those out, or I just leave them and just, you know, they'll go out, and when you go pick up paint with your brush, you won't pick them up and stuff, and they don't get into the way. But this is my fault. This was just leaving it out, not taking care of it. If you take care of your colors, you won't have that kind of problem, okay? You won't have that kind of problem at all. You can control it, and you'll always have beautiful, beautiful colors all the time. Now, how do you go about taking care of those colors? Let's talk about that for a second, okay? I, of course, I use this, and I use the Global Palette. And the most important thing is, if you're going to take care of colors properly, is if you use any kind of container like we use these also come with a little lid. If you snap that little lid on this will stay in this container for years and not go anywhere. It's like keeping the colors that are inside of the tube here. It'll stay in there for years and not go anywhere. So that's good. You know, seal off the air. Get rid of the air, seal off the air. When I use these types of palettes here, first I'll show you this one here. What I'm going to do if I'm all done painting and I want to do it properly, I just mist the lid here with a little bit of moisture. Now, I only do this if I'm not going to paint for say 4 or 5 days or so. I just mist the lid with a little bit of moisture there, and then snap the lid on top, and that moisture will make a nice terrarium effect there, and those colors will stay nice, and there won't be any kind of problem. The problem that I have is I tend to, because I paint a lot, and I tend to forget to close my palette at night, which some of you might have that same problem. Forget to close our palette at night, and they start to dry out. But you don't have to worry too much about the global colors. That'll take care of that. In the other way in which I put out my colors is I use this one right here. Let's grab this one. This is a global palette. This is a new global palette. The global palette, the wells are not quite as deep as one of these wells here. And I switched over to this one here because as I started to paint more and more and more, I needed more and more color, and so I went to these little caps here that hold 2.5 ounces as opposed to this holding about a little bit over 1 ounce here. So I like to use those. Now, this is an acrylic palette. Every color that I have in here is acrylic, okay? It's not globalized. And I've had these colors in this palette for about a year, and you can even see there's still, and I just opened it up today. I haven't opened up this palette probably in 3 months. And there's still moisture on the inside of the lid, a little bit from where I misted it when I closed it up. But these colors that you have here, they're still beautiful acrylic colors, and I use this when this is a rose mauling palette that I did. Some of the whites and stuff will be a little thicker like they should, but all of the colors that are in here are acrylic, and they'll stay very nice. A few of them, like the earth colors, might dry up on you. It's like I said, I haven't done anything with it. You should always check your palette, even if you use it in something like this. You should check your palette at least, you know, once every couple of weeks or so, twice a month or so. You should check your palette. If you're not going to paint, and I haven't opened that for 3 months. If you're not going to paint for a while, I suggest that you mist the lid. And the best way to preserve, especially if you're acrylic, is to take like a little thing of press and seal and put it over the surface here like this. Just take off a sheet of this, put it over the surface here, and then close the lid back on and make sure the tracks go in place, and you hear that snap, and that goes down into the top goes down into a little U-shaped piece of plastic and seals it off, and doesn't make it watertight, but it makes it airtight, and so it will preserve the moisture that's in there. But you should still check your palette if you want to keep it nice for a long time. You should check that every once in a while, okay? So now sometimes with some colors that you have, and so you get your colors and you get your colors out here. These are global colors that we have. And at some point, sometimes the global colors over a period of time, and it depends on shipping, depends on a lot of things, or how long they've sat on the shelf, you might get a little bit of separation sometimes in there, because it's like this one right here. Now it looks like, see, it looks, you open this up, this is a raw umber. And raw umber is just a real difficult color to have to deal with, in that the pigment, the ground pigment, is just very coarse. Okay, and it will look like it has all these little lumpies and stuff in it sometimes. And sometimes you just need to either shake it up into the tube, or what I do is, when I'm going to use it, is I'll take it down to my palette and make sure I whip that up pretty well like that. And I get a beautiful creamy color here again. Even though it looks terrible out here, you can whip it up just like we did with the oil paints. We used to put them out and whip them up a little bit before we go to use them. And you don't always have to do that with some of the colors. It all depends on how long they've been sitting without any kind of movement or being mixed up, because especially the earth colors, because they're heavy. And no matter what we do, we can't always keep them into complete suspension. Like this one here is staying in suspension a lot longer. It's just the same color. It's beautiful, and you can see it stays really nice. This is the burnt umber. And it's a beautiful pigment, nice and thick, and it's a beautiful globalized color. And this one is staying nice here for a while, where that raw umber's separated just a bit. Sometimes that will happen, but if it does happen, don't worry, it's still a good color. You just need to whip that up completely. So it all depends on, there's a lot of different conditions that can cause that to happen. Not being shaken up, or air pressure, if it's flown on a plane. There's a lot of different things. Can't always do that, but it's still good color. You just sometimes need to just whip it up, smash it up, and you can still have some nice color, okay? And so you have, in everything that you have a couple of different things that you can buy. You can buy it as an acrylic, or you can buy it as a global color, okay? Now, what do I recommend? If you're going to be doing this type of painting long term, and this is what you want to do, I would buy everything that I did as an acrylic. That's what I do. Every single color I use, I have an acrylic, and I make it what I want to do. I either use my colors as acrylic, like over there in the rose mauling palette, or I use my colors as globalized, but I control it. I make what I want it to do. I add the watercolor medium to it, and the gouache medium if I want to paint watercolor or gouache. I add different mediums to it. I buy it as a pure acrylic. The best buy that you can get in any of the Heritage line is the 8-ounce acrylic here, like this. And we use limited palettes, and this is what I highly recommend. And then you take part of this, you put it out into a cap, and you mix it up with some extender, and you have global color. But then you still have a container of acrylic color that you can use for watercolor and use for other things. Also, I get a lot of questions, is watercolor, can you mix watercolor medium into global colors? Absolutely, you can. You can make globalized watercolors, slow drying watercolors. Why you'd want to do that, I don't know, but you can, and it's no problem whatsoever. To me, it's kind of like a waste of extender, but you can do it. Okay, so as far as myself as a teacher, as an educator, as a manufacturer, I highly recommend large jars, because they're the most economical in this. The expensive thing that you can buy is tubes, and a lot of people like the tubes. But the nice thing about the tubes is they stay pretty nice into the tubes, for the long haul. But getting it like this is also a great way to do that, okay? But you can buy them. We make them for you. Some of you are, don't like to mix up global colors. We make that. But then you can't really make this an acrylic again. So the best way to have it is acrylic, and then turn it into global, okay? Because, you control it. The big thing about Heritage is you control it, okay? So take care of it. Don't make a mistake like I did here. Even if you do make a mistake like I did here, it's still recoverable. It still makes a very nice color. You can still mix it up. I can thin that out a little bit more if I want to. Sometimes in these containers, they get a little bit old. This yellow oxide has been in this container here for over a year. And I get a little buildup onto the outside. I run my knife around the outside like this, and I clean that all I clean some of that all out, you know, about once a month or so. I'll do something like that and clean out the other, so my container looks a little bit better, a little bit prettier. But they're just an inexpensive little container that you put on. If you want to save this, preserve this correctly, make sure you put the lid on. If not, drop it into the different types of palettes that you have. Make sure you mist the palettes, mist them before you close them all up. That's the best way. Give everything a good shot of water. Make that terrarium effect on the inside, and those colors will stay nice for you. But you still, no matter what, it is an acrylic, and acrylics dry with humidity and air movement and humidity. So you got to get it out of the air, and you got to increase the humidity in there inside that. That's why we missed the top, okay? But it's an acrylic, and if you don't take care of it, it's going to dry, okay? We can't make a product that will always stay wet, because it needs to dry, and it's an acrylic. And if you make a mistake like I do, then like I did on this time, it's going to harden up, but maybe you can catch it before it does all the way, okay? So there's some questions for the Heritage acrylics for you, okay? If you have any kind of other questions, you can always write us. But all depends upon you taking care of your products. That's what you have to do. Make sure you mix those extenders in. Make sure you check those palettes. If you've taken them out of their original container, you know, and you broke the seal, you broke the airtight and watertight seal on it, which happens when you open up these jars and stuff, and you break that seal. If you break that seal on there, just make sure you check it every once in a while. Usually back in these kind of containers, no problem. You can keep them 5, 6, 7, 8 years, no problem in here, okay? But again, I can't make that claim absolutely everywhere. What if somebody puts it in the sunlight into the desert? You'd never know, okay? We can't absolutely 100% guarantee it, but in most conditions, it'll last you for a long, long time, okay? But take care of your colors, because they're a lovely color, and the most wonderful thing about the Heritage system is you control it. It's all up to you. You control its drying time. So if you want to slow it down, add extender. You want to speed it up, add water back to it. And you control it, okay? You're in control of the artist system. All right? I'll see you later. And I'll see you on some of the other educational videos where I use this paint. You can watch me paint for hours with the acrylic colors, and they still stay wet. I'll see you over on those.